Hey guys, it's Bro You Whack, and welcome to the weekly series. Welcome to the series called 3 Years Ago, where we travel back in time 3 years ago and see how Overwatch was by looking at a specific hero. We see how they were at the beginning of Overwatch's lifespan, then we look at the glow-up phases, the growing pains that they had to go through, and maybe look at how they changed the meta and how they are currently now in 2019. Now for this series, I really don't like to just spitball you patch notes because that's been done a million times by Stylosa and Force Gaming. Rest in peace, Force Gaming's Overwatch videos, but I kind of have to be able to tell you the changes that went on with that hero, but I'm trying to give you a bigger picture for, well, that hero, but also what Overwatch was like at that time. And for today's video, that's going to be especially important because there aren't a lot of patch notes, but there were a lot of meta shifts in regards to this hero specifically. And the hero that I'm referring to is everyone's favorite Omnic, because who really hates this hero? Bastion. Now, even though I just said that not a lot of people hate on my boy Bastion, there once was a point in time where he was considered the worst hero in Overwatch, and that's why he got so much hate. But he was considered one of the worst, but he was also considered one of the best at what he does, and that's Bastion's charm. He's really good at what he does, but there are some glaring issues with him. He can give off a lot of DPS, but he has to do it stationary, and that's why he hasn't received a lot of changes, is because he's just one of those polar opposite heroes. But that doesn't mean he didn't have a slight glow up phase. Now, it might not be as big as Symmetra and Mercy, and he might still be a little ugly, but we still love him. So how was he back in the day? And shoot, how was Bastion even in the beta? Well, this is Bastion 3 years ago. Now, when most people think of Bastion back in the day, they always refer to him in his beta days, because if you guys didn't know, Bastion used to actually have a shield every single time he would go into turret form. We're used to Ursa or Reinhardt protecting our Bastion, but not this independent Omnic don't need no tank to protect him. That sounds so stupid. This DPS hero had a 1000 HP shield. Let that sink in. That's more than Brigitte's dinky little shield and Winston's baby bubble combined. And he's a DPS hero. Who has the biggest DPS? Oh, I'm so surprised that Blizzard spent years making Overwatch and probably spent months making Bastion, and not once did anybody go up to Jeff Campbell like, yo, homie, listen, Bastion shield, yeah, kind of overpowered. We should yoink that. Nah, they let it go through slightly, and then they yoinked it. But it's really important to bring this up because this is what gives Bastion his charm still to this very day. The fact that he has one major pro to him, but one major con. The fact that he has so much DPS, he can melt any single hero he's pointing his big schlong to. But the fact that you have to be very, very still to shoot out all his bullets, does this make him a bad hero? Yes, and also no, because it really just depended on the situation and who was helping the Bastion out. But the thing is, though, by himself, he was still not good, and even still now, he's not the greatest. But we all know, give him a Reinhardt or give him a shield, and he will be good. But that's where the problem starts to unfold for Bastion specifically, is that if you want to play Bastion whenever you wanted, you really couldn't unless you were on a payload map or unless you had a Reinhardt with you, and then people would just play Bastion because they wanted to play Bastion because that's the hero that they like, and they would be considered a throw player because they were playing a throw hero. And that's when the glow up phase starts to happen and where he becomes one of the greatest DPS of all time, and also still one of the worst, depending on the situation. And the first major change to make Bastion one of the most glorious DPS of all time came on July 19, 2016, where his ultimate cost increased by 10%. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Nobody cares about that. Let's move on to the Ironclad change. If you remember when Bastion got his passive ability, Ironclad, this is where everyone has so much trauma when it comes to broken metas. This is one of the first broken metas. Yeah, we had the World of Tank meta, but this was a completely different animal, because on February 28, 2017, there was so many changes to Bastion specifically because, again, he was one of the worst. They changed a bunch to his damage output and spread with his Sentry Recon, but one thing that I really love about this specific change is the fact that you can self-repair while moving, and I don't think a lot of people really remember this with Bastion or even Roadhog, is that if you want to self-heal, you had to stand still. You were basically Mei, and the fact that Bastion was already standing still most of the time while in Sentry just hurt his stock even more. But it's his passive that we're all here for it, because this is what started the broken meta trends of Overwatch. This is one of the first, because Blizzard thought it would be a grand idea to give Bastion a new passive ability called Ironclad, which allowed Bastion to take 35% less damage while in Sentry or Tank. 35%. Right now it's 20, and that's pretty good. 35 though? Give him a Reinhardt, give him a Mercy, and he was the most lethal DPS hero of all time. Protect the President, as commonly known as, involves a Bastion, obviously he's the president if you didn't know, a Reinhardt for protection, and a Mercy for that power-up ability, and this was an unstoppable force. And I truly mean that. This isn't a figurative term, this is a literal sense, because you could not kill Bastion when he was in Sentry form. He had just so much protection from his passive ability, the Mercy, from Reinhardt, throw in a D.Va in the mix, maybe throw in a Zenyatta or maybe an Ana, and you weren't killing him unless you had that exact same composition involving a Bastion, a Reinhardt, and a Mercy yourself. You guys think Goats was annoying or Double Shield is bad, which they are, and the worst part about those metas is that it usually requires 5 or 6 players to play specific heroes. Here, the worst part about this is that it only required 3, and the most funny part about this, because this is just so awesome. Overwatch is so great. The fact that Bastion was seen as a throw hero during this time, if you weren't playing Bastion, you were throwing. You were being a throw player, and you were going to get reported. Jeff Cameron was going to come to your house and tickle your toes. I just can't believe Blizzard let this go through. They already messed up with Bastion's shield, and now they messed up with his passive ability. But the thing is, though, this was on PTR for a good couple of weeks. They didn't have to push this out. They could have changed it if they wanted to, but nope. They pushed it out, and lo and behold, a month later, after people were crying about the Bastion meta, on March 3rd, they decreased it to 20%. Thank freaking God. Here's my theory, though. I think Blizzard did this intentionally because at this time, you have to remember, he was at the bottom of the barrel of heroes. During this time, he was at the top. He was the #1 hero. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He was the hero to play. And once everybody got a little taste of that Bastion cupcake, everybody realized the potential that Bastion had. And you kind of saw that with other heroes down the road, with like Junkrat especially, where he was at the bottom, he was overpowered, everyone had a taste of him, and then they realized the potential that he brings. So Bastion, I don't know if they did do this intentionally, but it helped his stock, because after this, everybody realized Protect the President was going to be viable for years on end. And that was going to be it for major Bastion changes for at least another year, because again, you have to remember, I keep saying this over and over again, he has one major pro and one major con. Either you have a lot of DPS, but you have to stand still, take it or leave it, and that's just the major trade-off with Bastion. And that's the beauty about Overwatch, is that there's a lot of trade-offs for a lot of heroes. If it was like CSGO, there would be very little trade-offs, but here we have a hero like Bastion that has a lot of DPS, or we have a hero like Tracer who's very mobile but doesn't have a lot of DPS long range, but has to be very up close and in dangerous situations. And that's why we play Overwatch, and that's why we main the heroes that we love based on our playstyle. If you were a weenie, you probably play Bastion because you like the protection and you're very sensitive, or if you were aggressive, you were gonna play someone like Genji or Tracer. But last time I checked, this wasn't a Tracer or Genji episode. I wasn't Stylosa talking about my Crunchyroll subscription. A year later, on July 24, 2018, he will receive another change. It wasn't that major, but still helpful on the bigger, longer maps like Junkertown, where his minimum damage increased to 50%. Again, if you were farther away from the target, at least you were gonna do maybe a bit more damage, maybe. And playing on those bigger and longer maps would be even more ideal for Bastion, because on December 11th, his ammo would increase and his weapon spread would also decrease by 33%, which I don't think enough people put enough emphasis on weapon spread, because this means wherever you point, RNG is not going to take over. You're actually going to have a slightly better chance to be able to hit the target. And once again, it wouldn't be for another year where we see a Bastion change. This isn't really even a change. It's more like a quality of life change, because now every single time you use your self-repair, it wouldn't consume your resources. Yeah, I guess that's helpful, but why wasn't that a thing at the beginning of the game? But there was one more change that went under so many people's radar that I don't think enough people appreciate this change that came to Bastion, because this is something that we've been asking for years now. This is something that made Bastion go back onto the top and made him the #1 hero of all time. And the update that I'm talking about literally came out 2 days ago, and this is the updated Brick Bastion muzzle flash. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that Bastion got a skin literally made out of Legos. How can you not love this robot? Even if you don't love him, you have to at least love his bird, especially in this Lego skin. But that was Bastion 3 years ago. That was 7 updates. That was the least amount of updates that I've ever seen, and at least 2 or 3 of them were completely irrelevant. But that just goes to show that they made this hero have a big con intentional, that they didn't plan to fix him or make him even better. But I can definitely see maybe a nerf come in the near future, because people are kind of growing angry at Bastion at the fact that the pirate comp is still thriving, and even better now with double shield. But whatever happens to Bastion, or happens to the meta, or happens to Overwatch, we all can agree that Bastion's bird cannot be nerfed. Keep Bastion's bird out of this. Make sure he is still the greatest accessory in Overwatch. So anyway, guys, I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Please let me know what you think about Bastion, what you think about the Protect the President comp, and what you think Bastion's future holds, because again, he hasn't received a lot of updates, but I think it's time. It's been a year now since, well, he actually received a good change. But I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. More Overwatch videos to come, and bye.